Everybody, this is Robert Phoenix broadcasting to you live. I hope you can see the chat here. What's happening? What's going on? I can see it. I don't see the monster mash. That's what it says, but it's not really supposed to be that. So I'm going to just continue to talk and make sure that everybody arrives as safely as possible as we gather together here this evening. Just about a half an hour late, a little bit more than that. We're working on a lot of material tonight. We got a lot of ground to cover astrologically and sociologically, cosmologically. There's a lot of logicallys involved tonight, let me tell you. So just hang in there, hang on, and we'll get this party started. Oh, isn't that what the shooter said? That's what he said just before he decided to do what he did. There it is. All right, we got Judy, we got Sally, we got double FUP 77 looking serious. Oh man, hi Haven. I'm not all that serious all the time. Just the maybe it's the moon. I think we're going into a vorticourse moon here, right? We started off with the Cancer moon on Friday, and that was an interesting Friday show. That was with Emily and Freeman, and both of them are Cancers. And we had the Cancer new moon. And I'm not sure they were in sync, to be honest with you. I'm being honest. I think they were in sync somewhat, but also maybe not in sync. And I was wondering if it was the new moon, because they're both Cancerian types. Well, they're both Cancerians. Emily, born on the 29th of June, and Freeman, born on the 6th of July. So there was a lot of Cancerian energy. And sometimes that energy it's intuitive, it comes in, it comes out, it moves left, it moves right. There's a lot going on with that Cancerian energy. And but it was an interesting show, and a lot of people got a lot out of it. I just thought that maybe the Cancerian moon was playing a role to some degree with the rhythm of the show. That's just my observations. So what's going on, everybody? Let me just check in a little bit more here as we all begin to assemble. The chairs begin to fill up. Hello, Joan. Nice to see you. Beth Berry. Hey, there's Joe from Down Under. What's going on, Joe? Nice to see you. There's the infamous Sticky Marks. Hello, Sandy. There's Robin. Hey, Robin, I didn't reply to your message on YouTube, but if you ever get down to Fredericksburg, absolutely look me up. I know you're up there in the Dallas area. Look me up, and we'll have some sarsaparilla. Sally was not in sync. Sally, you're a Cancer too. How about that? Radiant Lunatic, hi from New Zealand. What's going on? We're going to be talking about New Zealand tonight. We're going to be talking about the shooting. I'm going to be running horary charts, or the charts that represent the time of the shooting. It's a bit of a surprise tonight. We're going to go in an interesting direction. What's going on, Cleo Seeker? Nice to see you. And then Jessica. Hi, Jessica. There's my man, Elan. What's going on, Elan? Good to see you in the peanut gallery. Of course, there's Tanya. It's great. It's great to be here on Sunday night. It's very light out tonight. It's not like the winter Sunday nights where it's already dark and cold. Feels like I'll have some after party tonight. Yeah, the after party is me doing more work. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Just want to make sure we get critical mass happening. There's Kate. Hi, Kate. Cancer rising. Tanya, bad week. Joe, you're a Cancer. What's going on with you? How are the energies working for you? What's going on with Cancer? We're going to talk tonight about Pisces, believe it or not. I got some Pisces info I want to share with everybody, at least what I'm experiencing with Pisces, or how I'm experiencing. We got a new tweet from Trump. What do we got here? This is from somebody named William Craddock. Russiagate was designed in part to help the UK counter Russian influence by baiting the United States into taking a hard line against Islam, against them, I'm sorry, not Islam, against them, leaves us all with a more dangerous world as a consequence. Just another episode of the Great Game. Okay, so Tulsi Gabbard says short-sighted politicians and media pundits who spent the last 2 years accusing Trump as a Putin puppet have brought us to the expensive new Cold War and arms race. How? Because Trump now does everything he can to prove that he's not anti-Russia. Tulsi Gabbard, I really like Tulsi Gabbard. She's like a quadruple Aries. I think we peeped at her chart. Anyway, she's kind of sticking up for the POTUS there. Very interesting, and there's a lot of truth. Of course, they wanted to start the new Cold War for a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons. You got to have a new bully on the block. You got to spend those military-industrial complex dollars, right? And it diverts us from other potential threats. Like, for instance, perhaps the Chinese. The Chinese are never under any scrutiny, nor are they under any kind of suspicion about manipulating any election, because of course they never manipulate anything. And what about Israel? Israel's never ever accused of manipulating any elections, even though Walter Mearsheimer wrote a frickin' tome on the Israeli lobby, also known as AIPAC, and clearly showed that, yes, indeed, they are deeply involved in the electing of candidates. Thus, they can influence elections. Of course, these things never get talked about, especially now, because Russia was made to be the scapegoat. Did Russia interfere? Likely, on some level. Is it to the level that they were, been crowing about? That answer is absolutely no. Not. Zero. Niet. Niet. It's the only Russian word I know. Besides spasiba. I know niet and spasiba in Drosvodanya. Cheers. Thank you. And no. That's it. That's the extent of my Russian. Anyway, that just came across the news wire. Thank you, Mark Trueblood, for bringing that into the conversation. There's Kathy. Hey, Kathy, what's going on? Shari, 33 are watching now. Sticky, you're infamous. You've always been infamous. Come on now. Joe, so grateful for the family dog, a real angel. Our daily walks together on local nature trails have been wonderful, grounding. Great, Joe. Joe's now hanging out with dogs. A shift in consciousness. Joe, you're now channeling Sirius. We're going to get into Sirius tonight. We're going to get serious with Sirius. So we got a good show. Nice, kind of 90 minutes plus, ready to rock and roll and waiting for you guys to dive into here. And I'm going to get into some charts around New Zealand. I'm going to look at the Placidus mundane chart, and I'm also going to look at the sidereal chart. Oh, they're very interesting and quite different indeed. I've got a few other interesting charts. I've got the chart for Bloody Sunday, which was the kind of seminal event which kicked off the Russian Revolution. Russian Revolution lasted about 12 years. It culminated on the 11th of November. That's 9/11 inverted in 2017. The Blitzkrieg, or the back end or the back stretch of the Russian Revolution, really occurred between 1915 and 1917, and then the concentrated and compressed version of the Russian Revolution really takes place between National Women's Day, International Women's Day, which is the 8th of March, and then March 15th, the Ides of March, which is when Alexander abdicates the crown. So Alexander abdicates the crown on the Ides of March, March 15th. And then from that point forward until the 9th of November, the 11th of the 9th of November, that's really the concentrated, final stages of the Bolshevik Revolution. But it all starts on a day called Bloody Sunday, which took place on the 22nd of January in 1905. That's 12 years, a decade before. the fall of the Romanov Empire, the Russian Empire led by the Romanovs. Now, in between there, of course, we've got World War I, which is one of the pieces that's the undoing for Alexander. Now, they had Alexander in the crosshairs. And the reason they had Alexander in the crosshairs was because Lincoln decided that he was going to print greenbacks. He was going to print greenbacks and get out of the Federal Reserve so that he could fund, Lincoln could fund the Civil War. And when he did that, he began to cut out the Rothschild banking family. And this is what happened, right? So the central banks got cut out. Well, at one point, the Rothschilds were getting ready to launch an attack on the United States through their agents. And I believe at that time, it might have been France, Germany. I have to double check. But what happened is that Alexander had ships off the coast of the United States protecting Abraham Lincoln in the US. You can look it up, it's true. And they never forgot that. And after that, they wanted to take Alexander down. And Alexander was not a bad guy. You know, look, it was a time. Here's what's really interesting about the Russian Revolution or the Bolshevik Revolution. Alexander basically said, we're no longer going to be a fiefdom. So so there were people that were conscripted to work for the Romanovs and all the other previous emperors of Russia, right? They were all conscripted, and he ended that. He ended that. And once that happened, and this goes back to the revolutionary act known as Sunday Bloody Sunday, which took place in 1905. This is when they decided to mobilize the people and turn the people into the People's Army and begin to create the Bolshevik Revolution. It's really fascinating. Once they were taken out from under the arm, so to speak, of Alexander, it's like, okay, let's organize them and let's kick this guy out, which it took him 12 years plus World War I. Terrible war for everybody. Terrible, absolutely terrible war for everyone, including the Russians. And then once that wound down and the Russians came back and Alexander came back, it was pretty much a fait accompli. We're going to get into that tonight. We're going to look at the chart. We're going to go back in time. It's Mercury retrograde. We're going to look at Sunday, Bloody Sunday. Also, by popular demand, and I don't know if she's in there tonight, a non-Canuck, also known as my dear friend Linda, asked me to look at Justin Trudeau's chart. Oh, look who's here. Gang's all here now. There he is, Mr. Big Head. There he is. Yeah, I know. He just had to get in on it, didn't you? Jasper Bighead, the Astro Cat. He's got a huge head, doesn't he? He's enormous. Got an enormous head. Look at it. Look, his head is almost the size of mine. Look at that. About almost. Look at these people. Show them how large your head is. Look, about half my head. Look at that. Right? Well, anyway, Jasper's joining the party tonight. Now, Jasper, you cannot show your butt to these people. That would be very rude. Very rude. Jasper's about to, flash his booty. You don't do that. You don't do that. Okay, so I'm going to take Jasper. He may make another appearance. All right, say goodbye to Jasper tonight. He might come back because he's a stubborn cat. He's a Taurus. It's Jasper's sign. So, by popular demand, Linda wanted me to look at Justin Trudeau's chart. What's going on with Trudeau? He's kind of under fire. The Canadians are finally waking up. Finally. And I also wanted to look at the relationship between Trudeau and Castro and Maggie Trudeau. I think I did this before, but I wanted to do it again just in case I missed something. And then finally, I've got a really great chart to look at with my dear friend who's no longer with us. It is his birthday today. It's Paul Horn, who was a very seminal musician. And I've got a story to share about Paul and the role he played in my life, and even some astrological influences with synastry that can really tell a story about my relationship with Paul. So I'm going to do that a little bit later in the show. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, let's bring up the chart of the moment. And let's get into this so you guys can can indulge. Let's indulge. Look, he's back again. I knew he'd be back. I knew he'd be back. Let's indulge in the chart of the moment, shall we? No wonder Leo's ascending. All right, here we go. Let me get in here and let me do a little screen share. I'm not multitasking now because I have another life form. That, there he is. Okay, you've got to behave yourself. You have to behave yourself. Okay, you can sit up there. Sometimes he likes to sit on just on the other side of the computer screen. He's watching. He's like guarding me from evil spirits. I know that's what he's doing. Isn't that what you're doing? Or are you just rubbing your face on the computer screen? All right, here we go. So here's the chart of the moment, boys and girls. We got Leo ascending, Leo rising right now. And did I do this for France? I always do this. So I'm always doing my thing. Hold on. Yes, it's all about me. I know. Let me just change this very quickly, because I gotta get the right ascendant. I'm learning these Virgo lessons. They're coming slowly over these years. Let's go here. Oh, it's for Whitehorse, Yukon. Oh, it's because I have a client from there. I'm a little ahead of the time. How about that? Use birth now. I don't need to use birthplace. Yes, I had some clients in Whitehorse or near Whitehorse. Interesting people, very interesting. Here we go. Okay. All right. Let's look at that chart of the moment again, shall we? Let's do that. And there we go. Oh, we had Leo ascending. See, you've got to be specific here. Got to be specific. So Jasper is jumping timelines. All right, here we go. Virgo rising, Jupiter, Sagittarius, 4th house, Saturn, Pluto conjunction. Saturn edging ever closer to Pluto. It's going to hit reverse and go backwards, and we're not going to see them join forces again this close until, let's see, I think Saturn gets to what, about 20, and then it goes backwards again, and it goes all the way to 13. But you know, the epic conjunction is taking place next year, and that's going to be happening in January. And then I think the big event really is like around Valentine's Day. Okay. All right. So there we go. They're getting super close. Wow. We're going to get into this conjunction when I get into the chart for what happened in New Zealand. Okay. Venus in Aqua. That's at 19 degrees. And we got the train, the Pisces train, all aboard the fish train, the Pisces Express, led by Chiron in Aries. We're going to see that again in the charts for the Christchurch shooting. And we'll make a pretty significant appearance. We have a grand trine going on right there. No, it's not quite a grand trine. We've got sextiles, and there's the trine. We have a trine with Jupiter and the moon, which is good. Tomorrow, when you go to work, at the very least, you'll have the moon in Leo, getting closer to that trine with Jupiter and Sagittarius. If indeed you do go to work tomorrow, if you're one of those people, there could be good feelings abounding. You know, one of the things that that I've talked about for quite a long time now is to not allow ourselves to be emotionally dictated, to be emotionally guided, to be emotionally drained by external events. You know, this is really a trap, okay? It's really a trap. Because if you get drained by these external events, if you get emotionally charged by these external events, then you have no inner core. You have no inner core at all. If you're just bouncing from one catastrophe from the next and looking at, you know, what's going on in the world through that lens, you're just going to be lost. So this is a time where you got to get super clear. You've got to have a thick skin. You've got to have really good filters. You've got to have high discernment, and you need a relationship with the Most High. You've got to have some faith. You've got to activate your higher mind. You know, in my estimation, the higher mind, or the upper room, or the higher mind, to me, that's what people would call the Holy Ghost, right? That is the spiritual function that kicks in. That it is this kind of supernatural effect that we all have at our disposal, and that's where we can discern from a higher level about what's appropriate for us, you know, in terms of whether it's information or relationships or food or diet or lifestyle. If you stay in touch with that, you are in touch with your internal and eternal guidance systems. Okay, it's really important, really important. So you got to get in touch with that. When you get in touch with that, then you can move through this world without succumbing to a lot of the bullshit. You know, it's not gonna Velcro to you. It may take a little bit of time, a little bit of practice, but I'm telling you, this is where it's at. This is what we're all supposed to be learning right now. I guess you could learn something else. I guess you could throw yourself into every single event that comes up and walk around with basically shotgun-sized holes in your aura, because all you do is react to whatever's happening out there. But that's not a course of action that I'd recommend. I think there are better things to learn. That's just my opinion. So this is what's happening, and I think it's a time for us to put all these things together so that we can live internally and not externally. Now, it gets very difficult because sometimes the external world can be very frustrating. I get it. We all have moments where the external world is frustrating. But I'm going to tell you, sometimes these things begin to just kind of level out. You don't even have to do anything sometimes. I'll give you an example, okay? So there's a guy. His name is Shannon Sharp. He's a football player, ex-footballer, great football player, and just a really, really annoying commentator. Very annoying. Shannon likes to play the race card very quickly. That's his thing. I get it. You know, he's standing up for his people, right? Community, you know, it's what he does. I get it. And I think mostly he believes it, but he's obnoxious. Like, he can't even perceive another point of view. Can't, won't. And when you get him on something, what does he do? He changes the subject. So he's very frustrating to watch. Shannon is a very sharp guy. He's a bright guy, but he's angling. I think Shannon's angling for a post-sports career in political commentary, but he's hard to watch. And he's also a front runner. And I do not like front runners. If you don't know what a front runner is, they just go with who's ever popular. You know, they go with whatever team is winning. Oh, it's like, oh yeah, man, I'm a Yankee fan. Oh, really? No, well, aren't you from Chicago? Yeah, but I've always loved the Yankees. That's a front runner. Shannon's a big time front runner. One of his big time front runner idols has been LeBron James. And I just been getting sick of him talking about freaking LeBron James. And a lot of stuff I want to call him out on, but of course I can't, because, well, this is the way it is. Even with Twitter. But guess what's happening? LeBron James is having one of the worst seasons ever. I mean, he just got his shot blocked by some, generic European player last night. Never happens. Are you kidding me? The legend of LeBron James is crumbling before our very eyes. And watching Shannon try to defend that, well, that's kind of, is it Schadenfreude? Shannonfreude? Maybe. But I'm just telling you, sometimes we don't have to do anything. Sometimes we'll just see things that will just happen, right? It'll just happen. There is universal justice. I guarantee you that. Right, Jasper? Anyway, I'm off a bit of a rant here, but I'm just telling you, try your best not to get sucked into these externals. One of the reasons I do what I do is so that we can look at these things, decode them, and they can have less power over our lives, in our consciousness. And when you begin to do that, even though inadvertently you may learn about all this, illuminated or occult or esoteric symbolism, and are you being inadvertently, indoctrinated, initiated into that world? It depends on where you're coming from with it. If you're looking at it purely from research and empowerment levels, then perhaps not. If you're looking to use it to manipulate other people, well, then there's a chance that you may have a different tale to tell around it. Okay. Anyway, so that's what we're going to be doing tonight. Here's the chart of the moment. We got Gemini on the midheaven, Mars and Taurus, getting ready to get to right around 24 degrees. It's going to get to 24 degrees this week. And when it does, it will be conjunct the fixed star Algol, Algol, also known as Satan's head. That is Algol, and it has to do with decapitation and being kaput, right? Kaput. That is the Latin for decapitated. All right, listen, you got to get down now. Okay? You either got to go over there, or you've got to get down. What's it going to be? You just stay there. You protect everything. Okay. There you go. You got the tail. You're wreaking havoc now. Okay. You've got to go. You've got to go. Take that little leap. Take that little leap. Come on. Come on. You got to do it now. Okay, you've had your second time. All right. See, Joe, a dog would never do that. A dog would never do that. A dog would never climb up here. They may want to, but they would do that. Okay. So there's the chart of the moment. It's actually looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good, this chart of the moment. We've got the big issue here is the square with Jupiter and Neptune. We're going to get into that. I'm going to get into that square. And this Mars transit, which is coming up at 24 degrees, so that's 3 degrees. So what are we talking about? We're talking Thursday, Friday, when Mars conjuncts Algol. Ooh, keep your eyes on that. That could be kind of intense, right? Could be. Are we going to see beheadings? Is that what's going to happen? Are we going to see people get their heads cut off now because of what happened in Christchurch? Because that would be the most kind of immediate sort of retribution, right? Some crazy bastard somewhere with a sword going to go, cut somebody's head off for Allah because of what happened. It could easily happen. Could easily happen. We're going to get into this tonight, okay? And we're going to get into the Christchurch thing. So hang in there. What else? We're going to get into this this fish train, the Pisces Express. And there's some interesting sextiles going on. Energy's flowing pretty well. You have to activate it. So Pisces can be inspirational. Mars and Taurus are grounded and guided, right? Grounded Taurus, Mars guided. So this is a good time over the course of the next couple of days if you wanted to put your inspirational or creative ideas into action and make them manifest. Saturn, Pluto coming from the back end, also sextiling, right? This could be also quite good in terms of long-term ideas about who you are in your being and your spirit. Hey, what is it like to be a spiritual being having a human experience? How's your soul doing? This is a really good time to get into that, to try to understand the nature of these things. When you look in the mirror, do you like who you see? I'm not talking from a physical level. I'm talking from the spiritual level. If you were somehow to have your candle wick blown out tomorrow, how are you going to feel about yourself? This is a time where I think we need to really wrap our heads around that. Okay, I really feel that way. Knock on wood, right? So I think it's important. It's important to have a relationship with your spirit that is going to be resonant. And the sextile can help set that up. It can help set that up. You're looking at things from this Piscean, kind of soul-based level and dealing with the world, Saturn and Pluto, and trying to make peace with that and make peace with your relationship with the world to the best of your ability. Although, it's very difficult. It'll be challenging. I swore at somebody who was a customer service person today. Shouldn't have done it, but I did. I was pissed off, man. I don't even want to get into it. A rare moment, but I got there. Okay, I got there. Anyway, let's see. Then we got the Mars-Moon square. I'm going to blame it on the Mars-Moon square. That's what. I'm going to blame it on the Mars-Moon square. That's what happened. I lost my temper. It's just momentarily. But I was getting some attitude. I just have to say, I was getting some attitude on the other end. I was getting some attitude. Right? This is my thing, but I was getting some attitude. Still a little ways to go. All right, so here we go. Jupiter trine Uranus. Yes, it's going to start to go backwards. It's going to happen on April 15th. That's when Jupiter goes retrograde. It's going to move us out of that trine. It's going to come back again later on in the year. And it won't begin to trine Uranus again until it's around 25, 26 degrees, 24, 25, 26 degrees Sagittarius. So we're going to say goodbye to the Jupiter trine here after April 15th, give or take a couple of weeks. But Jupiter will be doing plenty of other stuff between now and the time that it moves into Capricorn. Okay, so that's the chart of the moment. This is where we are. The only planets that are going to be changing anytime soon. We have the Uranus shift. Boy, the earthquakes were happening all over the place. I mean, all over the place with that Uranus shift into Taurus. I did that on, I think, was it Monday show? I think I got into it on Monday show. Lots of them. And of course, there's a nuclear power plant in Nebraska, which is getting a little, freaky deaky. Got to keep an eye on that. Uranus rules uranium. Uranium and plutonium, of course, are core elements in these nuclear power plants. So, keep your eyes on that with maybe some potential destabilization. What could we, well, we've got Venus coming up at 19 Aquarius. So we're going to get into a Venus-Mars square this week. It's already there. It's going to get even tighter and closer. To me, this is about Venus and Aquarius. When you get into Aquarius, you get into ideologies. Sagittarius rules systems. Aquarius rules isms. Remember that. Systems and isms. And there's a little bit of a crossover between the two. So when we get into Venus and Aquarius, we're looking at relationships at a collective level, at a global level, at a communal level. Well, we're also dealing with things like the internet, because that's Aquarius. The internet is an Aquarian evolution, adaptation, and technology. It's what it is, right? We're all here together in this moment, right? Virtually, and it's the 11th house. Well, that's my name for it. Anyway, so we have Venus in Aquarius, which represents a relationship to the collective. It's also feminine energy. Aquarius tends to be androgyne. That's my experience with Aquarius. It's very kind of masculine, feminine, sort of at times unisexy. Can something be unisexy? I think Sheena Easton might have been unisexy at one point. Remember when Sheena Easton was hanging out with Prince? She cut her hair, short hair. Before she had that kind of long hair, and she was doing those pop songs, and then she cut her hair, and she was, kind of doing these this little bad girl trip with Prince. So she was going for the unisex look. She was unisexy. That's my opinion. Maybe Bowie was unisexy, coming from the other side, when he was coming from kind of the, the male androgyne side. Some people would think that. Anyway, Venus and Aquarius. Aquarius can also be very strident. We're gonna look at that. So I love the sign. Don't get me wrong. People say, "Oh, you don't like Aquarius." I love Aquarius. Are you kidding me? I love Aquarius. I have great Aquarian friends. I have Chiron in Aquarius. So I've got 4 planets in the 11th house. That's Aquarius's house. 3 of them are in Libra. I'm a fan of Aquarius. Don't get me wrong. Every sign has its good side and its not so good side. Every sign has its lighter side and dark side. Every side has its redemptive side and its not so redemptive side. And this is the way it is. Okay, so it's the way it is. And the plus side for Aquarians is they're great people. They can be really bright and cheery and charming and super friendly and really kind of open, and they're into new ideas, and these are all really cool things. And then there's the other side, which is, you know, revolution for revolution's sake. And then sometimes when Aquarians they'll get a hold of something and you cross a line with them, and if it's about an ideology or an ism, boy, they will just, you know, they'll go to 11 on the spinal tap amp, and that's okay. That's okay. It's kind of what they're here to do. But the thing that I've noticed about the sign, and I'm going to show it to you again tonight, is the revolutionary aspect of Aquarius. And not all revolutions are bad. Not all revolutions are good, and not all revolutions are even real for that matter, right? Look at what's going on in Venezuela. You think that's real? It's not real at all. It's a manufactured uprising. Apparently, by the way, they EMP'd those power plants. That's what I heard. They just EMP'd them. That's why Venezuela went without power. And they are going to full court press Venezuela until they get Maduro, you know, either out of there on a plane, headed to who knows where, or strung up on a cross and burned at a stake. They're not going to let up. And Maduro is got to be, he's a tough guy. He's a tough guy. He's a Sagittarius. He's a fire sign. He's not going to lay down. Anyway, that's a whole different topic of conversation. But that's a revolution that's not real. Okay, a lot of these revolutions that took place, like in Egypt, where else was it? Tunisia. What else? Libya. These were not real revolutions. They tried to do the same thing in Syria. They're not real revolutions. These are color revolutions, and these revolutions were inspired by the guy by the name of Gene Sharp. Look him up. Gene Sharp is the father of basically how to overthrow a country. Gene Sharp and Edward Bernays, they've got the blueprints. Sharp passed away this last year. Sharp's an Aquarius, born February 1st. What was the year? Was he born in 1930? I think he might, sounds about right. He was a little bit older. Anyway, yeah, so, you know, you look at the Russian Revolution. The Russian Revolution took place when Uranus was in Aquarius. There was a lot going on during that time, from 1915 to 1917. Trudeau was in Aquarius, Uranus was in Aquarius, Jupiter was in Aquarius. It's a revolution. It wasn't a great one, by the way. The rest of the world aided and abetted. Nobody came to the rescue of the Tsar. All the oligarchs, all the corporations, they just left them to hang out and dry, right? And then you get essentially eviscerated. And then when the resistance came from the South, you know, those were the white Russians from the South. Nobody helped them either, because the corporations had a vested interest in Russia, huge interest, massive. They wanted to industrialize Russia, which they were slow to do, but they eventually did. And they helped industrialize Russia to the point where when Russia got into World War II, they had enough armature, especially tanks, in order to mount a significant resistance against the Nazis, who they were also funding and industrializing at the same time. What a wacky world we live in, huh? Anyway. Okay, I want to talk about Pisces. I'm going to transition out of that. Just know that I love Aquarians. But this Venus, I'm sorry, going back to the chart, the Venus-Mars square, that's conflict, and that's fixed conflict. And that's coming, right? That's coming as we move into the days ahead. And we're dealing with the aftermath of this event. And who knows where all this is going to go. I have an idea. I have some thoughts. I'll share them with you tonight. But we're dealing with fixed conflict. That means when you get into Venus square, Venus and Aquarius looking for some kind of universal solution or contract, right? Because that's what Venus and Aquarius, well, Venus essentially is connected to is contracts. When you have a relationship with another person, you have a contract. That's what Freeman was talking about, contracts and talismans. He's exactly right. When you have Venus is a contract. And then when you have Mars and Taurus, right? That's the male principle. That's anger, that's energy, that's willpower. The two are going to be in conflict. Here's where I think this is all going. And I'm going to transition into those charts in a moment. I think they're going to bypass the United States and they're going to try and get a global gun ban. This is where I think this is all going. Okay, so just, pin that at the top of your board. And then I'm going to revisit that when we get into the two charts. Okay, so let me talk about Pisces. I know a lot of Pisces that are going through a very difficult time right now. Very, very difficult. Let me bring the chart of the moment back, because that should be able to help us. I know a lot of Pisces that are being challenged in a big way. They're being challenged to grow, let go, wake up. There's a lot happening with Pisces now. The sign, right? Okay. So the reason for that, I'll share with you. Number one, we've got Neptune. Here's Neptune. It's right there in Pisces. And it's at 16 degrees. So if we're looking at a wide conjunction, we could go back 9 degrees and get it to about 7 Pisces. And we could go 9 degrees out this direction and get it to about 25. So everybody born between 7 and 25 degrees Pisces. Now, if you're born at 7 degrees, that Neptune conjunction has passed you by. Okay, but it's still conjunct, right? But you're on the other side of it. The sweet spot for this now is going to be people that are around 12 degrees. Again, if we wanted to go out, we could go out to about 25, 12 to 1. That's still 13 degrees of the sign. And it's impacting these people. And if you've got Mercury in Pisces or Venus in Pisces, it's going to impact you as well. So the conjunction of Neptune to a majority of the Piscean sun, because it's right at the sort of the middle part of the sign. It's right in the middle, so it's going to have the most spread, variance, right, at this degree, because it wouldn't be having this impact if it was like at 5 degrees. People are 20 degrees Pisces, what's happening? But now that's not the case. You understand what I'm saying? So Neptune alone is impacting Pisceans at large. And it can create a number of different states and conditions. For some people, the conjunction can bring them confusion, can bring them a sense of being up and down an emotional elevator. There are some days where they can be incredibly elated, and other days where the elevator is going down in the opposite direction. Pisces it's a mutable sign and has duality built into it. So that's part of what's happening, okay, is this relationship with Neptune to the majority of the sign. And again, let's just be fair, let's call it around 12 to about 25, 13 degrees. But even somebody this is going to go retrograde again. I think it goes back to 15. Even if somebody's around 7, 8, you're still going to have that conjunction. It's going to be wide. On the other side, maybe you've gone through some of your Pisces crises, but more manageable. But you're still kind of there, okay? Now let's factor in Jupiter. Here's Jupiter coming in, and it's at 23? So again, if you're a Pisces and you're in between, you're right around these degrees that I'm talking about, which in this case, what are we talking? Like 9 in the other direction. So that's going to be about 14, and then 9. So this will take you right up to the final degrees of Pisces. So you have Jupiter squaring your suns. Okay, so now you've got the Neptune conjunction and the Jupiter square. When the Jupiter square comes in, what does it want? What does it have to offer? Well, it's an escape route, right? It's an escape route. And in Sagittarius, it's liberation. It's like, get me out of here. You know, open the pod door, Hal. You know, I mean, that's kind of what it's like, right? Actually, that's let me in. But this is what it's like. This is the Jupiter square, which is the escape hatch. So it brings in a lot of possibilities. A lot of possibilities. It's like, well, what could I do if? What would I do if? What would I do if? Right? The other thing, though, what Jupiter will bring with the square to the Piscean planets as well, is it can amplify conditions and states. So if you're Pisces, and you're going through confusion, you're going through some level of this up and down motion of the elevator, the emotional elevator, the square to Jupiter can make it bigger, okay? So it can actually amplify what you're going through. It can amplify the potential to, in some ways, change and have a more expanded view of your experience, but it can also amplify your conditions and reactions. Now, that said, you know, some of the other mutable signs are going through kind of a similar dilemma, but it's different. On the Virgo side, Neptune is opposing the Virgo sign. It's not on the Virgo sign. On the Gemini side, again, it's going to be squaring the Gemini sign. And on the Sagittarian side, it'll be squaring the Sagittarian sign. So the mutable signs are going through a very interesting time and have been since 2011, which is right around when Neptune went into Pisces. And for a lot of the mutable signs, it's been a bit of a slippery slope. But at the same time, the squares can really actually help you in terms of your personal growth. And when we get into squares with Neptune, we have to begin to have a realistic relationship with our inner life. Because if you don't, I mean, you can have some fantastic stuff happen, right? But those squares are basically saying, get your feet on the ground, understand these things, you know, get clear, you know, have influences work for you versus against you. With Gemini, the Neptune square challenges this Gemini idea that it can basically control sort of, you know, both domains or both realms of its own existence. You know, the Neptune square can bring up this idea that there can be actually, you know, two people living inside you, or there may be two realities that you're kind of fronting in some ways, right? That can happen with a Neptune square to a Gemini sign. And the idea here would be to somehow bring them into a creative coherence so that you're living one unified Gemini existence in a lot of ways. So this is a balancing or rebalancing with Gemini. Same thing would be said with Sagittarius. You know, the square to Sagittarius would have to do not with this, you know, kind of, it wouldn't have to do with the same kinds of issues that Gemini would have. Sagittarius would be shown in some ways the limitations of its supposed knowledge or its supposed truth. And that square with Neptune would come in and they would see in some ways like, oh, I've got a lot to learn. Or maybe I could be a bit more compassionate and not be as sort of summarily and Sagittariusly judgmental, right? So they've all got all the mutable signs are being affected by both Jupiter and Neptune with either oppositions or squares. But I feel like Pisces is taking the brunt because they're the one that's having the conjunction with Neptune. And that's when you're in it, right? You're really in it. With a square, you kind of understand that you're in a crisis or a dynamic that needs to be addressed. I hope you do. But when you have the conjunction, sometimes you're not even aware of it. Because, and especially Pisces, it's like, where is a fish of its environment? It knows it's swimming in water. You know, that's how that works. So for you Pisces out there that are having a tough time right now, and I think that there are a few of you, the one thing that you can look at here with Jupiter is it's squaring your sense of being kind of in this insular bubble, and it's breaking things open so that you can see higher truths, or even begin to see the participation that you have in your own process that has kept you in a small fishbowl. And maybe you need a bigger fishbowl, or maybe you need to be returned to the ocean, you know, like that fish, right? Finding Nemo. You know, this is a Finding Nemo time for a lot of Pisces. There's a bigger world. There's a bigger inner world. And Jupiter's coming in and squaring it. It's getting you to really see this from a much larger perspective. And sometimes it can be a, you know, kind of a rude awakening, or yeah, it could be a rude awakening. So hang in there, Pisces. You know, everybody's growing. Nobody gets through this phase we're in without significant growth. It's happening. It's on. Look at the cardinal signs. They're dealing with Saturn, Pluto, for crying out loud, right? They're dealing with Saturn, Pluto. All the cardinal signs, because Saturn's right in the middle there. So Libra, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, I mean, they've got their own issues, you know, with Saturn, Pluto. And the fixed signs, now they got to tangle with Uranus and Taurus. You know, that's going to be more of a factor as we get deeper into Uranus and Taurus. So we're all going through growth, and the outer planets are the diviners in some ways, or at least they're the markers of the type of growth that we're going through. All right, let me check back in with you guys in the chat. Been talking for a bit. Let's see what we got going on there in Chatlandia. Let's see. What do we have here? I've been having very vivid dreams lately. Sometimes wake up exhausted. Jupiter Sag square, adding to that fun. Yeah, and Capricorn, yes, Jupiter. What else we have? Pluto Saturn conjunction coming up. Grab your ankles, folks. Ooh. Joe, definitely strange, surreal dreams that stick with me more than usual. What else do we have here? Pisces is all my first house. These transits are tough. Yeah, you know, Pisces are having a tough time. I'm sharing a little love for Pisces tonight. How's that sound? What else? What else? Tanya's talking about impending explosions. A lot of bad dreams. Holy smokes. When we get a lot of people talking about bad dreams, something is up. Something is happening. And let's see, Ani, I've got a mutable Grand Cross. Well, listen, you took it on, and you get to master that ship. And once you do, look out. Tanya, stellium in Virgo, it is bombarded. Yes, absolutely. What else we have? Not going to be a nuclear war. You know, I don't think there's going to be a nuclear event. Oh, in Omaha. Well, you know, it depends. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a nuclear war. The only reason there won't be a nuclear war, I'll tell you why, is because the globalists and the corporatists want all the goodies. They don't want the world to go to hell in a handbasket. No, this idea of war, a massive nuclear war, I don't think it's ever going to happen, unless they just decided to finally throw in the towel and have one giant Molech party. But I don't think that that's going to happen. However, I do think that they could have some issues with the power plant in Nebraska. Okay, let's get into the charts here that I've been talking about for the majority of the time that I've been talking. All right. Okay, so I'm going to bring up two charts. And this is, let me bring the other one out. This is the first chart, and it is for Christchurch. And I've got this is the time that I got here. And I believe, let me just check before I go too far. Hold on. Just make sure I got the time. Give me 1 sec here. This one, okay, so yeah, I got the right time. This is, I'm telling you, I'm trying to learn my Virgo lessons. Should be proud of me. Okay? Here we go. This is the chart for the Christchurch shooting. Okay. Now, I have some thoughts on this, some of which I'm probably going to hold over till tomorrow. Okay. I'm going to try and keep this as close to straight astrology as possible, although I'm sure some things will bleed through here. Pun clearly not intended. Okay. So what do we have with this chart? Well, first of all, we've got, guess what? We're using Western Placidus mundane, right? This is Gemini on the ascendant. Hello. You know, what do we talk about when we talk about Gemini? We talk about duality. Duality. Okay? Right and left, you know, light and dark, the whole kit and caboodle. Now, I have come to the conclusion that duality is used as a psychic field to torque energy, okay? If you take two magnets and you flip one around, what do you get? And you go like this, what happens? You try to bring them together, it won't work. But what do you have in between the two? You have a field that is magnetic. There is energy in that field. Okay, this is what happens when you have duality, an event that's based on duality. There's a field there, and that field is energy to be tapped into. Just remember that. Remember, 9/11, Saturn was in Gemini, and the moon was in Gemini. Duality, what a big field that was, right? Okay, so we have the moon here. Sorry, the ascendant is in Gemini. And it's at 5 degrees, 18 minutes, right? Remember that. Look at what we have here. Mars in Taurus, 12th house. What is the 12th house? The 12th house represents what? Anybody? I know you're in there. Let me see. I'm going to go into the chat room. Let's see. What does the 12th house represent on a mundane level? Let's see. Let's see what you guys got. This is your astrology quiz of the week. I'm not going to tell you. Let's see. 12th house. What does the 12th house represent? Nothing. Trying to remember all things to pass. Okay. There must be about prisons, hospitals. Yes, Joe. Soul. Sorrows. Some degree, yes. Secret world, yes. Subconscious. What else? Places we don't normally go. The unconscious. Secrets. Mosques, churches, temples. Jennifer, you win. There we go. The garbage bin. I like that. The garbage bin. Nice one, Jessica. Churches, temples, mosques. Right there. Right there. We have Mars. We have violence in the 12th house. Okay. Violence in the 12th house. Fits, doesn't it? We have Gemini in the ascendant. Duality. Right? Hermes, the trickster. Uranus in the 11th house. How did we see this thing? We saw it like it was a video game. We saw it like it was a first-person shooter video game, which is an Aquarian 11th house, technological, for all the world to see event. Now that video is hard to find. There's a reason why that video is hard to find. Yeah. It's called lack of blood. All right. What else do we have here? Oh, now we've got the train, right? This is the train I was talking about. Chiron in Aries, top of the chart, almost the top, just headed down, descending. At Pisces midheaven. What do we know about Pisces? Not everything is as it seems, right? It's also the sign of religion. It can be martyrs, it can be victims. All that Piscean stuff rises right to the top of the chart, and there's Mercury right there, 24 degrees exact. Retrograding, there's the sun, 24 degrees exact. Whenever you get Mercury and the sun that close, good luck at separating out details, okay? Good luck on that. Not only, and the reason why is number one, the connection between the two is so tight that whatever the reality is theoretically is, right, the sun, that Mercury, this thing that describes that reality, is like plastered, and there's no space. There is no objectivity whatsoever. Okay, that's what's happening here. And this is also communication to the world. Okay, so look out, we've got 2431, 2414, and 2409. 24, 24, 24. So at that moment, this event, which was being broadcast nonetheless, right? It's being broadcast to the world that this was going to be a situation where there was going to be victims. Right? What do we have here? Jupiter square. What have I been talking about, right? Neptune's right there too. Neptune conjunct the sun. What is really going on with this event? What is really happening? The Jupiter square, again, comes in and amplifies. What are we trying to do now? Right? If you're a Pisces, if you're a real Pisces and you're going through this phase that I'm talking about, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get to the truth of your life. Okay? That's the micro. The macro is we're trying to get to the truth, or maybe we should be trying to get to the truth about what the hell happened here. Because that Jupiter square is coming in. And it's basically cracking this thing open. Now, can there be an amplification? Absolutely. I talked about that as well. But look how tight this stellium of the midheaven and Mercury and the sun. Now, is there any room in there at all to look at this event any differently? Now, remember, we've had a lead up of certain things, right? Certain things. Like you can't talk about Sandy Hook now. You talk about Sandy Hook, well, guess what? Your video is going to get pulled off of YouTube. And if you're somebody who has any kind of stature or any kind of skin in the game, you're going to get sued, right? That's what's happening now. And Alex Jones better settle his suit and he better fucking win. That's all I can say. And he should win. Wolfgang Halbig won. Of course he won. They didn't show up. He decided to fight him. He didn't show up. Anyway, the track has been laid now so that we cannot have a meaningful discussion about events which we may not think are actually perpetrated and or motivated in the way that they're being presented to us. Because now if you do, well, now you're being put into a bucket, right? It's a very dark bucket. You're one of those people. Here with this very tight stellium, there's almost no room whatsoever to have any kind of dialogue about what happened. Because with Pisces, what do we get? We get martyrs, we get victims, and we get a nut job by the name of Brendan Tarrant, which I'll talk about. Here's what really grabs me, is what's going on over here at this time with this chart, okay? The South Node in Capricorn is getting closer and closer to Pluto. And this is in the Placidus chart. It's getting closer and closer to Pluto. Of course, Saturn's there too, right? And the vertex was also there at the time of this event. This is the transcendent spot. This is the second ascendant. Takes you out of the chart. It's in the 8th house. There are powerful forces behind this event. I'm telling you that right now. Very powerful forces. And how I am viewing the South Node transiting through Capricorn is that the systems of the elite. The elite are getting spooked, okay? They're getting spooked. People are waking up. This true node in Cancer, this is where people are starting to come back online again. This is where people are thinking about things like, you know, purity of water and the family and late-term abortions and the food that we eat and all and what we put in our babies. It's right there. Right there. People are waking up. So what are they doing now? They're shutting as many doors as they possibly can. You know, anti-vaccine films on Amazon, pull them. Anti-vaccine films are on YouTube, pull them. Right? Facebook, you've got new guidelines for vaccine truth or anti-vax, pull them. You see what's happening? It's like the doors are shutting now. And they're going to shutter faster and faster and faster. So we're going to see these events begin to take place quicker and quicker and quicker, because the South Node is in decline. These oligarchic superstructures are in decline. They may not look like they're in decline because they have the power and da 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 da. I'm telling you though, I'm telling you. What we just saw, I believe, was an event that was pre-planned. That's my 2 cents. Okay, you may not agree with me, and that's okay. Now, how could it be pre-planned? Well, was the guy a shooter? You know, was he a Manchurian candidate kind of guy? I'm going to get into that tomorrow. Okay, but what I'm seeing here, 8th house is hidden, right? There's something hidden, the hidden hand about this event. And it's the tight conjunction with the South Node in Pluto. And Pluto obviously is death, transformation. There's a lot of intense imagery around Pluto. And Pluto in Capricorn, you know, it began in 2009, but we had the financial crisis. That's when we had the merging of the government and the state in a very, very clear way. They've always been kind of at the hip with one another, but that's when the United States government began to buy all these companies and bail them out. That's when it happened. It was like, boom, it's taking place. Pluto and Capricorn, this is the new reality. And the new governments and the new states are corporations. We talked about this on Friday. The United States of Nike, the United States of General Motors, the United States of Microsoft. I mean, these are the new nation states. And they don't have any use for nationalism, none whatsoever. The only use they have for nationalism is that maybe one nation might be able to afford to buy their products more than another nation. I'm sure Nike has more invested in selling sneakers in the United States versus, say, Bangladesh, which is probably where they're making some of the sneakers, and they can't even afford to wear them. I'm just throwing that out there. So that's the only reason they have any vested interest in states or nation states, because of the economic status. At some point that'll change, and they'll have absolutely zero interest in nation states. All they'll have interest in is the commodification of your consciousness. That's it. And that's kind of happening as we speak. To me, this is a desperate move right here. This South Node Pluto conjunction, the 8th house of death, right? Collusion, black magic, and occult. It happened on the 15th of March, the Ides of March. Of course, was when Caesar was stabbed by the Senate. And as I mentioned earlier, it was also when Alexander, the Tsar of Russia, and the patriarchal head of the Romanov family abdicated the throne. That is the 15th of March. So we have an Ides of March event. It's piggybacking on this energy. Now, when I saw this event, and when I heard about it, I didn't see it, I heard about it first, I began to think of the Sunday, Bloody Sunday massacre that took place in St. Petersburg on the 22nd of January, 1905, which we'll get into a little bit. And that is what kicked off and started the Russian Revolution, or the Bolshevik Revolution, which again culminates 12 years later. in 1917. I'm sorry, yeah, 12 years later, 1917. Now, the culprit here is what? It's the guns. Now, the guy had this gun, had all this writing all over it, okay, all these cryptic messages, you know, for everybody to learn and understand, I guess. But the gun was an AR-15, which is a gun that's used in where? The United States. And it was specified and modified to the AR-15 that you can get and modify in California. It had California modifications and specs. Now, this guy was from Australia, and he did his dirty deed in Christchurch in a mosque. Now we're into the crusade energy, or the energy of the crusades, which we've looked at before. Okay, so this guy is coming, he's like a crusader, right? But what is he a crusader of? We're going to get into his manifesto a little bit. His manifesto is a nihilist manifesto. That's where this Piscean midheaven comes into play. Is he on the right? No. He doesn't really like Trump, but he loves Candace Owens. He loves him some Candace Owens. You know, he was a socialist when he was. I mean, he's all over the place. But the definition that they're using for him now is a techno-fascist. Okay, this is the Piscean definition, or the non-def. Where is the definition? What the hell is his message? Right? It's nihilism. He hates everybody, but he sure as hell wants to start a race war, and there's some kind of undercurrent of white supremacy there, theoretically, right? Which we'll get into. And here, right there, what is Aries? It's Arianism, right? I mean, to some degree, you know, if we associate, right, Arianism or Aryans with, you know, it can fall in line theoretically with Aries. So it's wounding. It's the wounding of the of Arianism, right? Theoretically. But there's also, again, echoes of Arianism in this guy's manifesto. It's also guns. This is where I believe they're going to go for a global gun grab. That's what I think is going to happen. This is where Chiron comes into play. 10th house, it's the world, right? They're just gonna go, they're gonna figure out a way to have a mandatory global gun ban, may come through the UN. This is where I think, is it gonna happen next week, next month, next year? No, but I think this is where this is going. Because we're looking at what took place. A guy who was living in Australia, went to New Zealand, went all over the fucking world, right? He went to North Korea, he went to Pakistan, he went to Turkey. Okay, I'm gonna get into his story tomorrow. He's not who he says he is. I can tell you that right now. He's not who he says he is. He's not 28 years old. That may be his name, but he's not who he says he is. But the message is clearly all over the place. Here's your Piscean message, right? Now, I wanted to look at right here, the 5th degree of Gemini. So I put this up on Facebook, and I want to read you the Sabian symbol for 5 Gemini. Okay? If you don't know what it is, if you haven't been to my Facebook page, I'm going to read you the symbol. In fact, I'm going to show it to you. Show and tell tonight. 5 Gemini, a revolutionary magazine asking for action. Keynote, the explosive tendency of repressed feelings in root emotions. Every moment overstressing one direction calls forth in time an equally extreme movement in the opposite direction. This is particularly true at the level of the dualistic mind, symbolized in the zodiac by Gemini. What is rigidly bound in form and convention leads to explode into formlessness. It may do so violently if socially oppressed. Through revolution, or at the psychological level in psychosis. or may withdraw inwardly into the mystical states in which one identifies with an unformulatable reality. That's the other side, right? The other side would theoretically be Sagittarius. This fifth stage is related to the first, for it is the experience of a world of being so far perceived by the everyday consciousness which starts the process. In the same sense, a psychedelic experience may momentarily make the mind transparent to a non-ego structured realm of consciousness. It may lead to a sustained attempt at understanding what has been revealed of a transcendent reality. Whether the revolutionary action is violent or peaceful, bitterly resentful or loving, the one desire is to reach beyond established forms. Okay? So what Rudyard is saying is that the antidote to this degree and this symbol is something more inward, profound, and leading to a revolution in consciousness. Okay? That's what he's talking about on the other side of the Gemini equation. And what do we have? We had the other, at least on the surface, okay? At least, and it fits everything. A revolutionary magazine, well, that's his manifesto. That is his manifesto. So what is his manifesto? Shall we explore his manifesto for just a moment? It's all over the place. It's the one thing clearly we can read. Of course, they always have a manifesto. There's always a lead behind, right? Let me go to Vox.com. How the Christchurch shooter used memes to spread hate. So now we've got anti-meme material. Memes within the manifesto serve to draw attention to and pique readers' curiosity. I want to see the damn manifesto. Come on now. Oh, so hold on. See, now I want to see the manifesto. Don't tell me how I'm supposed to feel about the damn manifesto. Let's see what we have here. Can we see some of the manifesto's moments? Of course, there's the subscribe to PewDiePie. We talked about that on Friday. Shit posting, that's a term that's the Marines used. I just want to see the manifesto. The shooter also credits the far-right personality Candace Owens with helping to push me further and further into the belief of violence over meekness. The shooter could be a genuine fan of Owens, who's been known to espouse right-leaning views on immigration and gun control. This reference might be meant to incite Owens' critics to blame her. I mean, he was all over the place on this thing. I just want to see the damn manifesto. Give me 1 sec here. It's funny, they're telling what the manifesto is doing to people. They're not actually showing the real manifesto. I had it up here. He posted on 8chan. Hold on. So he says the author was inspired by Charleston church shooter Dylan Roof, as well as Anders Behring Breivik. So if you look at the Dylan Roof material, and I'm going to get back to the manifesto. If you look at the Dylan Roof material, theoretically, that shooting took place in a church in South Carolina. And then we just had, not long ago, a shooting in a temple, right? A temple, Jewish temple, a synagogue in Pittsburgh. And now we've had a shooting in a mosque. So we have all three of the Abrahamic faiths, theoretically, that have been hit by a shooter, right? Okay, so that's part of the pattern as well. part of the Piscean pattern up at the top of the charts. He was listening to a Serbian folk song about Radovan Karadzic, the Bosnian Serbian political leader. Let's see. It's all over the place. Something's burning. Hold on, I have to check my kitchen. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Sorry about that. Definitely not the kitchen. Somebody else is cooking. Anyway, so I need to make sure. So the manifesto is all over the place. Okay. It on one level, sorry. On one level, it sounds like he is a white supremacist. On another level, he sounds like he's fucking Charlie Manson. Okay, it's nihilism. It's representing nihilism, and you can see that at the top of the chart with Mercury and Pisces, and then the squares going on as well in this chart. Chiron, the Jupiter squaring everything. It's squaring the Sun. It's squaring Mercury. It's squaring Neptune. It's squaring Chiron. You know, and the Jupiter square is basically blowing everything up, but it's also this gateway or this cut in a mine that theoretically there can be a shaft of light or truth. Okay, and I'm using this specifically because we are still in the throes of this event, and there's a lot of stuff coming out on this event. More of the political stuff I'll deal with tomorrow. Okay, I'll deal with it tomorrow. The other thing that is going on here is we have Aldebaran, which is conjunct the ascendant. And Aldebaran is the opposite of Antares, and they are both connected to, Antares is war, Antares is violence, right? It's like an aspect of Mars. And Aldebaran, if Antares is the iron fist, Aldebaran is the glove around the iron fist. And that's right there on the ascendant. Okay, so that is kind of a telling tale on some level from the Placidus perspective. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the sidereal chart because I looked it up and I thought it was quite interesting. And it actually gets into a theory that I've had for a while. Okay. So this would be the sidereal chart for this, right? This is the sidereal system is a lunar-based system, and it is theoretically the way that the stars and the constellations are laid out. What I use is called Western Placidus astrology. This is the sidereal system. There are astrologers that use sidereal time or the sidereal system. The sidereal system clearly is used in Vedic astrology. And that every now and then you'll have an astronomer will say, well, astrology is wrong. Well, it's a different system, okay? It was set up differently. And my theory or my feeling is that we have been so immersed in this system that was set up by Ptolemy that it has become its own living and breathing matrix, okay? That's not to say that the sidereal system does not have perhaps an influence and an impact. And here's where I think it might. I've been of the mind that people who are setting up events at a global level, let's call them the elite for lack of a better term, I do believe at times they will use the sidereal system. to actually coordinate the events, or at least have them sync. And it may not even be like one of these psychological operations, or it could be a financial movement, economic crisis. It could be a larger scale confrontation. It could be something that leads to the signing of, one compact or contract between, one nation. And I'm gonna just throw this out there that we're dealing at that level at times with a sidereal manifestation of a chart. So that would mean that we'd be dealing with two separate realities astrologically. One would be the Western Placidus style, the other would be the sidereal style. And I've been doing Western Placidus and accurately for a long enough time to understand that it's a model that has traction. And I believe it has traction not only because of the way it's been set up, but because of how much we've been investing into it for a very long period of time, okay? The sidereal system, my experience, and I got into this, looking at this about 6 or 7 years ago, was that this is probably what the royal family would use, and probably what's at an esoteric level that would be, concordant with the royal family, that this is probably what they would use. So we're dealing with two separate realities in some ways. If we use this, we'll make it more like theirs. I don't know. I don't know about that. But let's see what this has to say. So at that time, guess what? We have the ascendant is in Taurus. And what fixed star do we have right there? Right there. We have Aldebaran. Aldebaran is the bullseye. And it's right there on the ascendant. Okay. Interesting, right? This is the bullseye of Sirius. This is the flaming star. Did we talk about Sirius on the show on Friday? This is the blazing star of Freemasonry. And it is a big player in occult symbolism. Right? The United States was set up when Sirius was at its peak, right? Right there, July 4th, when Sirius occluded the sun, theoretically, binary. It's our binary star. It's right here, Aldebaran on the ascendant. Okay, what do we have here? Mars, Aries. Now it's not Taurus, it's in Aries, 12th house. Wow, okay. We got Mars in the 12th house, but now it's in Aries. And there is a disconnect between the two. Okay, and I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. We still have Uranus here. Instead of Taurus, it's in the sign of Aries, again, sidereal. But look at what we have here, this conglomeration of Aquarius. And I think both can be equally true in this extent. In two realities or two separate vectors can be used in an event like this, or in a situation like this, because this is the call to the world, right? And of course, Aquarius is everything that we just sort of dove into, the first person shooter tactics, the internet, live streaming, it's all here. The flip side with Pisces, we got the manifesto that's crazy, it's all over the place, it's nihilistic, doesn't make any sense, right? So the two are like this. Now, instead of Chiron and Aries, we have Chiron and Pisces. What do we have there? We have victims, we have suffering, we have martyrdom. It's religious, right? In Pisces. We still have what's going on over here in the 8th house, but now it's in Sagittarius, right? What does Sagittarius do? Sagittarius makes laws. Who's the enforcer of the laws? Capricorn. So I think the two here are kind of working hand in glove. And where's the moon? Gemini. And it's 1 degree off of that 5-degree ascendant, or the 5th degree ascendant where I was reading that Sabian symbol. So I just wanted to bring this into play and into the discussion here. Look, part of fortune. It's in Leo, right? Kings and queens, the elite, right here, royalty. So I just wanted to bring this into the discussion because it's something that I've explored and played around with, that these two versions of, at times, astrological reality. One, which is the astrological reality that we experience, and then there's this other one, which is being programmed right here. Now, is one more, again, realistic than the other? Well, first of all, you have to believe in astrology to get into the fact that it's actually real. And I believe astrology is not only real, it works. And I've seen it work again and again and again. In my life and in other people's life, it works. Is it everything? It's not everything. Please remember that. It's a system. And it's a good system for navigation. It's a good system for understanding cycles, right? But it is not a be-all, end-all experience. Okay, I have to be clear about that. But it is a system and a really good system, and it does work. But this is part of the Gemini world, right? The duality, one version and another version. So this is the sidereal event, and there's Aldebaran, the bullseye, right on the ascendant. The eye of Sirius looking right into this event. Okay, now, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting between the two because the two are both playing a role. They're both playing a role. Let me go back and look at that ascendant. 5 degrees Gemini, right? It's selling something. That Sabian symbol is it is about that radical manifesto. That's what we're getting, right? That's what we're getting. Well, what is 10? What is 10? I haven't gone there, so I'm freewheeling now. I'm just letting you know. I want to know what 10 is in terms of the Sabian symbols. And it won't take me long to find out. Let's find out what 10 is, shall we? Let's do it. Okay. So 10 is interesting. We have 10, 10, 17. It is interesting. 10 is a Red Cross nurse, the compassionate linking of all men. This symbol reveals the feeling of human cooperation at the stage of pure altruism in service to the social whole. On that foundation of Christ love, agape, or true companionship, man can reach a still higher level of experience made possible by the refinement of the substance of his being, his consciousness, and his will. This goes beyond imagination and faith in the future, beyond Christmas tree celebrations, for it implies going into the dark to bring life and love to the tormented and the deprived. At this final stage of the fivefold sequence, we see what is finally open as new potentiality to the widow before an open grave. That's a preceding symbol. That's what is that? Taurus 5. The closing symbol of the preceding sequence. Personal attachment and love to a husband or wife has changed level, becoming a consecration to humanity. Isn't that interesting? Two very, very different kinds of potentialities there. On the one, right, with the Placidus chart, we're getting a Sabian symbol that resonates with the events. Revolutionary magazine. Yeah, it's happening. It's beneath that. The compassion and linking of all men. Isn't that interesting? The symbol reveals the feeling of human cooperation at the stage of pure altruism in service to the social whole. On that foundation of Christ's love, agape, or true companionship, man can reach a still higher level of experience, made possible by the refinement of the substance of his being. Now, is that what they're trying to do here? Were they trying to get us to some level of Christ consciousness by doing this? I'm not certain about that. I'm not sure about it. What I am sure about, or at least fairly sure, is that we're dealing with two different levels of reality, right? We're getting the one on the mundane level, which clearly shows up. Gemini, duality. I mean, the guy's about as dual citizen as you can be. He's all over the freaking world. He's living in Australia. He comes to New Zealand. Here's your duality, right? Right there. Two places. But here is a different reality, right? And whether this has been planned this way or came out this way or through this way, the other reality is that we have a different kind of vector or trajectory, right? That is not necessarily connected to the other ascendant. There's a clue here, and that's really this place, the compassion and linking of all men. That's where we need to go. And we're not, and clearly we're not getting a whole lot of that. So it's an interesting modular piece that we've opened up, or at least I've opened up. But it's definitely fascinating. And even this idea of the bullseye on the ascendant, because that's where it is, right? And look, we're at 29 with the sidereal chart in 29 degrees Cancer, right? It's getting ready to go into Gemini here. Interesting, huh? Anyway, okay, let me get out of the stop share, and let me connect with you guys in the chat room and see what's going on with you. If I can find it. Here we go. Let's see, what do we got here? Got 109 people watching. How about that? Here we go. It's hard to be sure when life is falling apart at the seams. New child, she's not afraid of the bull. Happy, happy, happy song. He was full of bulls and his massacre is BS. How about that, Jessica? There we go. Okay. All right. Life is not falling apart. Okay, we got a lot going on there. There's a lot scrolling through. I can't even keep up with it. Can't even keep up with it. Anyway, I just wanted to bring out the two different charts so you guys can understand that there are potentially two separate realities going on at the very least. Okay, let me get back into the Western mundane side of things, and I'm going to transition over here. And by the way, I'm going to talk more about the event tomorrow on my show, and get into some of the political stuff a little bit, right? Okay. So let me get back into, what time is it? 8 o'clock? How long are we going? I'll go another 15, 20 minutes. Here, let's do this. Let me get into the Justin Trudeau stuff real quick, which I think is interesting. So Linda wanted me to do this, and so I'm going to do this because Linda's a good friend. And Trudeau's, I don't think he's interesting. I think this is interesting. So there's Trudeau's chart. He's 29 Libra, the burning path, right, via combust. Sun in Capricorn, 2 degrees. What I find really interesting is the inconjunct with Saturn, which is at 0 Gemini, okay? And I'm bringing this up because there's this idea that Fidel Castro is Justin Trudeau's father. And you put pictures side by side of how they look together. When they're young, they clearly look alike. He doesn't look a whole like Pierre. So if we're looking for clues here, Saturn is the father. Gemini, what do we have? 2 fathers, right? 2 fathers. Hidden, tucked away, right there in the 8th house. Secrets. The secrets of progeny. Sun, right? Inconjunct Saturn. This is a path to the father that is unclear. The broken path to the father. The mystery of the father. Saturn and Gemini, 2 fathers. Okay? To me, this is the biggest signatory, potentially, of the Trudeau. See, this is where Western astrology comes in. I mean, look, the guy potentially has 2 fathers. And Saturn and Gemini, okay? I mean, check it out. And there's the inconjunct. It makes total sense. Total sense. All right. Just wanted to bring that part up. He's got a connection with other countries, obviously. Neptune, Mercury, Jupiter. Says he's born in Ottawa. That's probably. He may not have been conceived in Ottawa, but he was born in Ottawa. So what I wanted to do, just there's this chart. What's going on with him in terms of his life, his path. He's got Pluto, Saturn. They're all coming up on his Venus. Saturn next year, Pluto in a couple years. We've got Neptune going through his 5th house. And he's got Neptune squaring Jupiter, Jupiter squaring trans-Neptune, 5th house. I think he's going to get into legal problems. That's my sense. He's got legal problems ahead of him. And he is going to be challenged legally. Uranus just came off of his descendant. It's in his 7th house. Remember, the 7th house is ruled by Libra, which is balancing the scales and law. So he's got Uranus going into his 7th house. This could be some very interesting renderings of legal judgments. Uranus is at 0 Taurus, and it's beginning to square Venus in his chart at 2 Aquarius. He's got some issues. He's got issues. Would his wife divorce him with the Uranus-Venus square? Possibly. Possibly. If things got hot, if things get hot for Justin, you may see a split in his marriage. But clearly, we're dealing with Venus, Libra scales, Jupiter, law. He's going to have legal problems. That's my sense. Mars is going to be coming up into his 8th house shortly. Mars-Saturn square. Will that be more of his relationship with Papa Fidel coming to light? Who knows? We'll see. But that's what I see for Justin Trudeau. I think he's going to have legal issues. I think they're going to come up quickly. And I think he's going to have some marital issues as well. That's my sense. And maybe an abrupt change or split with his wife. Could be abrupt. They got kids and everything. I mean, on the surface, it doesn't look like they break up. But astrologically, quite possible. Okay? All right. So that's what I see for Mr. Trudeau. Young Mr. Castro, Justin Castro. All right. So what I want to do is I want to bring up this other charts here. Let's do this. Let's do Castro and Trudeau. Okay, so this is him with Castro. Right here. Okay. So what's telling about this chart, for me at least, is okay, what do we have? He's on the inside, and Fidel is on the outside. So there's Saturn, right? There's this Saturn, Gemini, 12th house. So Trudeau's Saturn is in Fidel Castro's 12th house, which is also like the hidden, he could be a hidden father in his own chart, right? 8th house, 12th house, hidden houses. Interesting. Okay, here's Uranus. This is his Mars and Moon. So Uranus is an unusual relationship here with men in his life and also with the mother, right? Because the Moon is the mother. We have the Mars-Moon conjunction. And here's Uranus. This is Fidel's Uranus right here, conjunct his Mars and Moon. Usual relationship with the mother. This is Juno. Juno's an interesting asteroid. It represents kind of like Juno in the chart is like man and wife, right? Man and wife. It's kind of soulmating in some ways. Juno. Oh, look, here's Fidel Castro's Moon on Justin Trudeau's Juno. There's a connection there. And again, it's the mother. Moon, Uranus, Moon Uranus, right? So the mom is involved between these two guys in a big way, right? And his Saturn is right here in Trudeau's first house. And again, Saturn represents the father. This is a paternal figure in the first house, right? It's interesting. And even his son Neptune, see the thing with Castro, he's got that Sun Neptune conjunction. A lot about Castro you don't know. You know, that guy, there's a lot of things about Castro people don't know about. You know, there's crazy stories about Castro. Clearly, he was a rich motherfucker. He was really rich. He lived a freaking life of luxury. He was the king, right? He was the king. He was the king of Cuba. He was the king of communism. He was the king of the Caribbean. But there's a story, just one little story. So I've told it before. He was a huge baseball fan. And what he would do is he would fly to the United States. He'd get to the United States. Don't ask me how, maybe the CIA would take him. Anyway, he would dress up as a rabbi and he would go to Yankee games and watch Yankee games. He loved baseball. He goes a rabbi. There's that Neptune-Sun conjunction, right? Taking up a religious disguise to go watch a sport, baseball. And with Neptune, a sun in the 10th house, that is the influence of the father in the chart. That is the father. Sun in the 10th house is the father in the chart. Here we go. Interesting, right? I thought it was. All right. So what about Margaret Trudeau? What does she got cooking with Mr. Castro? What's she got cooking? Hold on. Where is she? Here. All right, here's her chart. It is. Okay, this is pretty interesting stuff here, all right? Oh, look at that. That's her true node right there. Her true node. And looky, look, there's Chiron and Mars. His Mars is right on her true node. That's it's attraction, right? That is the male principle right there. True node, 5th house. It's on the cusp of the 6th. Pretty romantic in the 5th house. Chiron in the 12th, the secret influence, right? Behind the scenes. The father behind the scenes in the 12th house. Again, conjunct Chiron. Interesting. Look what we have here. Moon, Mercury, Neptune conjunction. Really in sync, right? The moon is the mother. Neptune, which could, you know, represent some form of cover. Again, obfuscation. And what else? We've got a very close conjunction with Venus in the chart. His Pluto and true node in her 8th house. Of course, the 8th house is the house of conception. The 8th house is the house of conception. The 12th house is the house of manifestation and birth, the body. Okay. Do I think that based on this, I would say they're probably lovers. Could he be the father of Justin Trudeau based on the relationship with Margaret Trudeau? I'd say quite possibly. Look what her IC, I'm going to say yes. This is the IC right here, right? That's her house of home. That's maternal. You know, that's maternal. That's the mother, IC, in Mutable. And there's his son right there. So even though this is in Virgo, the IC is going to be lunar because it represents the home in the 4th house. Oh, that's his IC, my bad. And that's her son, my bad. Yeah, so there we go. That's his home. She traveled to his home. All right, there it is. Where's her IC? Down here. Oh, look, there's Juno. How about that? So that's the home. Remember I was talking about Juno as being sort of like, you know, this asteroid that represents this, you know, divine principle, you know, between two people that, you know, come together, everlasting. It's right there. Juno conjunct the IC. Her home, his Juno. Hello. Juno, Juno, Juno. Juno, they were lovers? They were. And in her chart, she's got the Jupiter moon conjunction in Sagittarius. That's emotional connection with people from other parts of the world. Very interesting. And oh, look, there's that Saturn in conjunct, her Saturn in conjunct his Uranus. And we have the moon in conjunct all the way back there. Looks like Pluto. Yep. I'd say it's a match, astrological match. I think we can see that. There we go. Interesting. At least I think it is. All right. I'm going to hold over the Sunday Bloody Sunday chart. I'm going to do that next week. But I did want to honor my friend Paul Horn tonight. Paul passed away a couple of years ago. And Paul was a very seminal musician. Let me see if I can find an image of Paul. Let's see if I can grab one here. Paul was a really, really great multi-instrumentalist. Paul could play saxophone, and he could play the flute. He could play pretty much any woodwind. He was extremely talented guy. Let me throw Paul's image up here so you guys can see him. Let's go back here. So there's Paul Horn. This is, when he was a bit older, and Paul created ostensibly what is the first New Age record, which was Inside the Taj Mahal. And he snuck in the Taj Mahal with a tape recorder, and I think he paid a guy off, and he hung out there, and he recorded these very ambient recordings, and they were just hanging around for a long time. He was living in Los Angeles, and a record company guy came by, and he said, "Hey, I'm looking for some music. Do you have anything that you've done that we can put out?" And he thought of it. I said, "Well, I did these recordings in India at the Taj Mahal." And the guy said, "Well, let me take a listen to them." And he listened. He goes, "Well, these are pretty interesting. Why don't we clean them up and we'll put it out?" And it became kind of a smash hit record for the genre. There were two records that really started the kind of New Age musical genre, for better or worse. Some New Age music was really good, and some was not so great. The other one was Music for Zen Meditation by Tony Scott, and of course, Inside the Taj Mahal by Paul Horn. So Paul became a bit of a celebrity after this, and he got to hang out with the Beatles, got to know George Harrison, and before this, he was a pretty hardcore bebop kind of guy. Played with, a lot of really well-known jazz musicians. He played with Miles and lived in LA. There was a big LA jazz scene. It was called Cool Jazz. Art Pepper was a part of it. And Paul was definitely part of it. Paul Desmond was another. It was all, so he was in there. And Paul actually, I think he was pretty open about it. Paul was a heroin addict, and he wound up getting off heroin, and he became a transcendental meditator. So it was finding his spirituality, which helped him get off of heroin. And so Paul made a career pretty much after recording Inside the Taj Mahal, recording inside these ambient spaces all over the planet. And the next one he did was Inside the Great Pyramid. Of course, that one sold very, very well. And then he did Inside the Great Wall of China, inside Findhorn. Paul did a number of these recordings. It became well known for them. And I met Paul back in 2006 and 2005, 2000. I think it was 2006. And I was working for eMusic at that time. It was a online digital music service. And I'd worked for them full time, and I'd left that, became a stay-at-home dad. So I was doing stuff for them, doing some writing, and I interviewed Paul because I thought he would be a great person to interview. And I'd always thought that Paul playing at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco would be a phenomenal kind of event. And after, and I really connected with him, and I said, "Have you ever thought about playing at Grace Cathedral?" And he said, "Well, yes, I have." And I said, "Well, would you like to do it?" And he said, "Would you?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Sure." So now all of a sudden, I got on, I got on the hook for producing a concert for Paul Horn at Grace Cathedral, which happened. Okay. And it was a great event. Paul played. People were thrilled to hear him play. My friend Stephen Kent, who I think is probably the best didgeridoo player on the planet. He won't agree to it. He won't admit it, but I think he is. Stephen played. Paul and Stephen played together. So we had didgeridoo. We had, I think, his alto sax. Paul, it was a tremendous night. I'll give you a look into what Grace Cathedral looks like. It's really an amazing space. Let me pull that up here. So this is Grace Cathedral, and I had seen Pharaoh Sanders at Grace Cathedral, and it really left a very powerful impact on me. So this is this amazing medieval cathedral in Nob Hill in San Francisco. And of course, here's a labyrinth here. Right across the street is the Masonic Theater, big theater. So you have the Anglicans and the Masons right across the street from one another. So you can imagine, the ambient sound that would travel through this place. It was a real special event, and I got to know Paul, and he was a wonderful, wonderful guy, very sweet guy, and had some really wonderful people around him. And that's how you know when people, are good people. It's like who associates with them, who their friends are. And Paul was surrounded by really sweet, kind, creative, loyal people. Okay, so today is Paul's birthday. He's a Pisces, and I just wanted to, kind of honor Paul, because he played a role in my life, and he played a role in a way that he doesn't quite understand or know. And I'm going to get into this now. I'm going to bring some astrology in. And I didn't really know this until tonight when I started to break this down. So I decided to do a synastry chart between Paul and myself. And I was really kind of blown away, to be honest with you. And one of the things that really grabbed me was that our Saturns are conjunct. He has Saturn at 10, and my Saturn was at 11 Capricorn. And his Saturn is in the 5th house, which is creativity. Paul had a very long career. He played and performed pretty much up until the day he passed away. And so I have Saturn in the 2nd house. So our Saturns were connecting. We're working together in a lot of ways, right? And now you have, here's his son, and his son is in the 8th house, which is interesting too, right? Because he played in these spaces. He played in these ambient spaces, and he kind of, like I said, snuck into the Taj Mahal. So there's his Sun, Venus, and Uranus. And my Uranus is right on his ascendant. So I brought something kind of, different or new to his chart in a lot of ways, or maybe creative, right? And and his Neptune was trine his Saturn. So he was very creative with Neptune in the 1st house. My Pluto was in the 1st house too with his chart. It was just interesting, right? Neptune here. So we have these contacts. My Neptune on his moon, Saturn, Uranus on the ascendant. So we have some conjunctions going on, and a lot of inconjuncts, right? A lot of inconjuncts. So one of the things that Paul really played a role in my life, and he doesn't really understand this in a lot of ways, but I went through, at that time, Saturn was going through my 8th house in my chart. And I was having my Saturn opposition, Saturn going through my 8th house. And I'd gone through an event earlier on in my life that was not a win for me. I was organizing an event. I was a young hotshot college TV producer, okay? And I'm not bullshitting, that's what I was doing. And, you know, teachers would take me aside and it's like, man, you got it, kid, right? You got it. You know, just get through this, you know, get to Los Angeles. You could be a hotshot producer, you know. And what happened is that it got away from me. It all kind of tumbled out of control with this one event that I produced. And the event was a success, but my role in it became kind of untangled. And as a result of this, I changed majors and I went into English literature and I moved away from television production, okay? So it was at a college called the College of San Mateo, which is where I was cut my teeth and all this stuff. And in order to do the most amount of publicity for Paul, I got him everywhere. I mean, I got him on a sports talk station because Paul played with Frank Sinatra. And when they heard that he played with Frank, these guys love Frank, and they did an interview with Paul. This is a 50,000 watt, you know, sports talk show because they love Frank Sinatra and Paul's a connect. So this is what I was doing. I wanted to get him everywhere because, quite frankly, I didn't want to lose my money. And I also didn't want to let the guy down. You know, we wanted him to have a good event. Wanted everybody to have a good event. Anyway, so one of the things I did is I wound up contacting my old school, which was the school that I had this prior event when I was in college. It got away from me. I thought, well, okay, let's see if we get Paul down there. They've got a jazz station. And they said, yeah, bring him on down. It was the Friday before the show. The show was on Saturday night. We brought him in on Friday, drove him down there. And they had a simulcast where they were interviewing him with a camera. And they were also broadcasting live on the FM signal and, of course, the internet. And what was really interesting was one of the guys on the camera was a guy that I'd gone to college with and was part of that event. And it all came full circle for me. And it was incredibly healing in a lot of ways. It was like I had a redo and a makeover. And so this thing that I didn't capitalize on or didn't fully complete when I was in college, I was able to do so with Paul in this other event. And that was Saturn going through the 8th house. And he doesn't understand it because I never really told him the story. But he was a very significant player, you know, during that time and when I was doing this. So wherever you all are, Paul, thank you for the role that you played and helping me, you know, close a chapter in my past and in my life and heal something. And thank you for a great concert. It was fantastic, a great evening. And wherever you are, I hope you are just playing the most vibrant celestial tones that you can be inspired by. So today, Paul Horn, remembering you and your role in my life. Thanks, Paul. All right, getting a little emotional there. A little emotional. Let me check back in with you guys. See what's going on here. All right. There we go. There's a lot of love. A lot of love happening in the chat room tonight. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. Just remember, I told you the story for a reason. And the reason is nothing is completely in stone. You can always go back in time and heal something, okay? It can happen. And you never know how it's going to unfold. Just remember that. Remember that. All right, I am out of here. You can find me at robertphoenix.com. Yes, I do readings. I do this for people. You can get a reading with me if you like. Come on over, robertphoenix.com. And I'll be back tomorrow, 15 minutes of flame. And I will be getting into the New Zealand thing a little more hardcore than tonight. I just want to get into some of the astrology. But tomorrow you want to jump on board that. We're going to get into that, and I'll tell you where I think this thing is going. Okay, thank you all. You know the mantra. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to step on what's possible. And to the best chat group on the internet, have a very good evening and a very good Monday. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Ciao for now.